welcome to Smartphone Show number 11. In this program, a detailed video review of Nokia's 3rd edition Series 60 clamshell, the N71. I've also got a roundup review of 4 major golf games for the different smartphones and communicators. Which one is the perfect golf game for me?
Now, I know I'm always saying here's something completely different, but Nokia in the last couple of years have done a really good job of bringing out a diverse range of devices. This is their very latest Series 60 3rd edition clamshell smartphone, and we'll come to the inside features in a moment. As with most clamshells, there are pros and cons for the form factor. Against it, it's slightly bulkier in terms of thickness. There's also the fragility of the hinge. You never quite know whether these things are going to last a lifetime or not. On the plus side, of course, there's the fact that the screen itself is protected by the bulk of the machine, and that when you're talking, you've got the full length of the phone to wrap around your face. So it really depends whether you like flip phones or not. There's a cover display on the Nokia N71, by default just showing you a time in a small window, and if you're playing a music track, it shows you the name of the track. If you press the button down, and you get a bigger clock and a confirmation of the date, as you can see here. Below the cover display is the main camera lens with LED flash. It's the same camera basically as on the Nokia N70, 2 megapixel with TV quality, a video recording at 352 by 288 pixels, 15 frames a second. It works well enough, but I'm a bit concerned about having the camera lens on the outside of the device like this. It's just bound to get smudged every single time you press this button, or maybe scratched by things in your pocket. I'm not convinced by this camera location. On the left side there's an infrared window, which is good. I'm glad to see infrared making an appearance back in Nokia's smartphones, and a push-to-talk button if you've got push-to-talk enabled on your network contract. Elsewhere around the hardware there's the power on button on the top, and underneath the hinge, tucked up away in a few millimetres of closely packed plastic, we've got a cover which is slightly fiddly to get off, and even fiddlier to lose, as you can see here, for the pop port, Nokia's all-purpose serial and communication and audio port, as with all their Symbian-based smartphones, and the charging port. And underneath the pop port, another small fiddly cover, but this time it's hinged for mini SD. This is rather fiddly to get out, and I'm not even going to attempt it here without a pair of tweezers or pliers, so I'll pop that back in. But mini SD will take you up to a gigabyte of expansion or so. Let's open up the clamshell now. It sticks open at 135 degrees and also about 165 degrees. That's for a viewing on your desk or talking, wrapping around your face. The display itself, you can see here, is nice, big and clear. It's quarter VGA, 320 by 240. Series 60 3rd edition means slightly different fonts from the old-fashioned Series 60 devices. Perhaps the main control fonts, back options here, and the network status are all in slightly smaller font relative to the main information on the display. But it's certainly very clear and easy to work your way around. Opposite the display we have a fairly spacious keypad, but I don't think they've made quite the most of it. The number keys in particular, there's plenty of room here, and yet the actual keys themselves are quite narrow and rather clicky to press on. Above that, the usual Series 60 control keys, call and hang up, and the soft keys, now, which are rather interesting in that, as with many clamshells, there's quite a distance between the soft keys themselves here and their representations on the screen here, back and options in this case. So you have to make the mental leap to go between back and that key, options and that key, and that's not as intuitive as on most Series 60 candy bar phones where the two are right underneath each other, but not a huge problem. The navigator key I didn't like at all. I hate joysticks for a start, and this isn't a joystick, so that's good. I like navigator keys that you rock backwards and forwards, and this is a navigator key, which is good. But they've styled the centre of the key as a sort of mini joystick with this huge dimple, and you put your thumb on it and you instinctively think it's a joystick and you try and nudge it, and of course you can't because it's a rocker key. So I think more design needed here. above the navigator key there's this multimedia key. Now on the N70, one of the predecessors of this N71, you press that and you get whichever application you've assigned to it, for example gallery or music player. On the N71 and presumably future N-series smartphones, you press it and you get a new interface that certainly I hadn't seen before, showing you the up to 5 applications that you can assign to each of the navigator left, right, up, down and press in shortcuts. So for example here you'd press the center navigator to kick off the music player. Now, under the old system, one button press and you're straight into the multimedia application of your choice. Fear not, for the same functionality is here. Rather than just pressing it once, you press and hold it, as here. So I'll press and hold the multimedia key, and there we are, straight to the default shortcut, which was in the center here. If you look at the map, music player, so press and hold takes you straight into music player, which is fine. Now, looking around the main interface, I'll press the applications button as normal and then you can see the different screens of options. So let me talk you around the applications on this Nokia N71. There's the usual culprits for S60, messaging, contacts, calendar, gallery, to-do, notes and so on. There's up to 50 different icons on these phones. Not as confusing as it sounds at first sight, but there's certainly an application or a utility to do most jobs. Underneath the imaging folder there's also the interesting feature of a flashlight player for little trivial multimedia programs and games, and LifeBlog, their photo blogging and information assimilation program, which is rather good. Again, the services is their old web browser, which they still include for accessing old-fashioned websites, but under the My Own folder you'll see that they've included their next generation web browser, which I can't actually demonstrate because for some obscure reason this won't work with the GPRS settings for my prepay SIM card here in the UK. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that, so I can't demonstrate the web browser, but it's very similar to on the N91, which I looked at in a previous show. Again, there's the visual radio, FM radio. Also curious is this icon here, which has a shortcut to download and install F-Secure antivirus. Now this is completely and utterly pointless. S60 3rd edition by definition is completely immune to malware. To gain access to comms functions to send and receive messages, including copies of itself, an application has to be Symbian signed and checked to within an inch of its life, and there's just no way a virus will get anywhere near being signed. So what is the point in an antivirus application? I do not know. Snakes is nice. That Nokia's a 3D game. Built into the ROM, also built into the ROM, Nokia's search function, which looks up things in the UK in Yellow Pages, and in different countries around the world you'll see different shortcuts and different databases. You just pick your access point and then you can search for web information, even maps, businesses and images. Nice to have in the ROM anyway. Inside the organizer folder, in addition to some of the standard S60 apps again, units conversion, calculation, voice recorder and so on, there's an icon for Quick Office, but before you get too excited, it's simply the read-only viewer module and not the full editing suite. But then that's probably in line with Nokia's N-series aims. This isn't an out-and-out business machine. Within the tools folder, the usual collection of odds and sods, including a pretty decent file manager, as long as you don't want to delve too deep into the system folders. And curiously, there's none of the Series 60 3rd edition GPS utilities, as on some of the other 3rd edition devices, but no big loss. If you want to do anything serious with GPS, you're going to buy a navigation suite from a third party anyway. So, running S60 3rd edition, there are the usual caveats about applications for the majority of S60 phones currently available, which are running 2nd edition, and them having to be recompiled and tweaked to run on 3rd edition phones. But this situation will ease as the months go on, and I would expect a fairly full suite of programs within, say, 3 or 4 months. One thing I wanted to show you on the back of the device, if we activate the battery release, at first sight it looks like a proprietary battery shape, but if you turn it over you see it's actually a bog standard Nokia BL5C, which sounds a bit technical, but basically it's the same battery pack as used in countless other Nokia smartphones, which is great. And, when you're out and about for long periods of time, I love taking 2 or 3 spare batteries. It means even if you're away from a power source for a week or two, you can use the smartphone quite intensively and simply slot in a new freshly charged battery when you run out of power. Overall, the N71 is very pleasant to hold. The hinge is sturdy. You don't feel like it's going to break down on you all the time. When you get a phone call coming in, you can the number's visible on the front cover, and then you open it, and the action of opening it answers the call, which is nice. Ditto for closing the cover and hanging up the call, as you'd probably expect. So the build quality is good. The overall vision of the device is good, apart from the camera positioning, which I'm still unsure about. I'd have no hesitation in recommending the N71 as a smartphone. Its closest competitor is probably something like the new HTC Star Trek Windows Mobile 5 devices, as e.g. the iMate Smart Flip and various other branded devices around the world.
Ah yes, the good walk spoiled golf. One of everyone's favourite games for computers of all shapes and sizes, including smartphones and communicators. I thought there's got to be a really good golf game for the communicators and smartphones that I've been trialling out. My quest started with the E61, Nokia's landscape screened next generation communicator. Here I'm booting up Golf Pro 2, which is given away free with all the Nokia E-series business smartphones. As you can see, it makes good use of the wider screen. So we're starting a new game. You can see the graphics are fairly pleasant so far, but there are a few problems, as I shall explain. Here's hole number 1, and you can see the first problem is that each of the holes in Golf Pro 2 are designed almost as puzzles. You can see here the jump from the first section of the fairway over a huge lake to a tiny middle island and then onto the green. And this is one of the more straightforward holes. You wait till later holes when they're almost like a game of Tetris. Where's the simple up and down the fairway with the occasional dogleg that you get in most golf games and on real golf courses? Anyway, I'm going to step down the club here, moving the tiny pointer around to aim around there. And let's take our shot. On the right of the screen you'll see a typical power bar and a rather fiddly timing indicator, which you'll see moving as I take my shot if you watch the little the indicator below the golf ball. Right, first of all I'm setting the power, which you could release at any point there, and then you'll see at bottom right the timing indicator swings very quickly back to front, and it's very tricky to find the exact timing spot you want. However, let's persevere. We've bashed the ball down the fairway, and I think we've got a pretty good location. Remember that I've had a bit of practice with this, even so I'm in a bunker, and I've now got to face getting out of the bunker over a huge lake onto this middle section, and there's no way, of course, so I'm going to play it out onto the fairway, which I shall do now. And then from the fairway we'll try and take it onto the over the lake onto the next island. Do bear with me, this gets interesting. Okay, now we're going to hit it onto the island, and there it is, set off across the water, and looks like I judged it just about right, but there's a bunker on the mid-island as well. So already we're up to stroke 4. I'll persevere just for the sake of argument. I think I can just about get it across the water. I'll do my best. And it turns out I couldn't. And this is where you can see the problem. We're already on stroke 6. This is a very typical hole. Some of the holes are more tortuous. Finishing every single hole on 7 or 8 or 9 shots, or even being told that you've hit the shot limit and being unceremoniously dumped onto the next hole, doesn't make for a fun golf game. I'm sorry, Cinegenics, the people behind this golf game. I don't care if it is free with most of these Nokia games. I wanted to tear my hair out after 20 minutes and delete it from my smartphone altogether. So thanks but no thanks. So this is Golf Pro Contest, running on a slightly older generation of Symbian smartphone. This is on the Series 60, in this case my Nokia N70. The similarity in naming between this and the Golf Pro 2 we saw earlier is not accidental. They're made by the same publisher.
although by totally different developers, which is why the games are different, even if the overall packaging similarity is there. As with Golf Pro 2, there you start off with an overhead view of each hole. You get a confirmation here on the top left of the wind direction, and you can plan your strategy for the hole. The big difference is that the holes here are sensible. They look like real holes. Where you have water, it's there, just as it would be in the real world. It's not all around. There are occasional hazards, rather than hopping from island to island in a sea of water. Let's fire it off down the fairway. There's the usual click method to set the power and the timing by stopping the bar at a certain point, and I think we've fired it off fairly nicely down the fairway. The graphics are slightly rudimentary, but certainly well suited to the fairly low resolution of most second generation Series 60 smartphones. Okay, so we're most of the way to the hole. We've got an 11-mile-an-hour wind from behind us and to the left, so we'll allow for that and just underhit this slightly, coming into the hole, and this should get us somewhere near the green. And there we go, on the green, and just at the back of the green. Let's take you through to the putting. You can see that the speed of the game is pretty impressive on this style of device and with this screen size. There's certainly no waiting around. We just went through the back of the green, and now the 11-mile-an-hour wind is actually into us, so we're going to have to hit this one slightly harder. There we go. I found Golf Pro Contest here to be one of the harder golf games I've played, but I like golf games hard. It's hard as in the real thing being hard. You've got a golf grid on the green here showing a big swing from right to left. This is an animated grid that sort of animates as the view appears. So we'll fire this off. We've got 18 yards left to go. So firing it off to the right. Let's just see. I didn't fire it off quite enough, but we're near the hole. So this is Golf Pro Contest for Series 60. This is 9-hole golf with cheesy music, which is thankfully just cut out. You get 3 courses to choose from. 2 of them seem to be in perpetual autumn, so we'll go for the nice green one. You get a pause while the preceding Windows Mobile screen gets flashed up, which is messy, but then the game gets on with it and starts loading things into memory. The important unique selling point of 9-hole golf is the fact that everything's generated in 3D in real time. So if I fire a shot off, you can see it's effectively like being in a little flight simulator behind the ball, which in this case has just dropped in the water. No, we'll try hitting that again, I think. The control of the shots in 9-hole golf is very tricky indeed. Setting the initial power is okay, but then there's a sort of weird system where you have to click the enter key several times and try and stop it before the 0 mark. And it's not too clear how timing is achieved and how you can get your shots to be precise. Here we've stopped short of the lake, so we'll try again, see if we can get it over the lake, and miss it. That just shows how tricky the fire control is. Let's try again. That felt a bit better. Again, using the 3D physics with a little tracer on the golf ball so you can see where it's gone. Let's get you close to the green, if I can. That looks about right. Overall control of which club you're using is badly or out of bounds. This is just a 9-hole golf. It's very much hit and hope. If I click on the club, you don't get a choice of which iron. You just get a choice of wood, iron, wedge or putter. There's no fine control in this game. So overall, I wasn't impressed by 9-hole golf. I just found it a pain trying to fight the controls. More work on the controls would have made this a far better game. So here we are with links produced by Handmark in association with Microsoft. As you can see, it's gorgeously photorealistic here on an iMac KJAM Windows Mobile 5 smartphone. Let's fire it off down the fairway and you can see the game in action. Quite a tricky swing indicator. You have to be quick with the stylus. The animation's superb. You can see the golfer there, and you really feel like you're belting the ball down the fairway. There's support for terrain, dynamic cameras here, switch there to show you the ball landing. You've got hazards, trees, slopes. Here we've got a fairly lengthy 123-yard drive into the hole, and the wind's from the left. But I'm going to just belt it in the right direction for now, and you see how it gets on. I think I've not hit that quite hard enough. Let's just see how we get on. Again, very, very fluid. The processor speed in most Windows mobile devices doesn't really do the game justice. Here you see I've actually landed in a hazard, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm going to use the very handy mulligan option, which you'll be using a lot if you play this game because it is quite hard. The hardness in this game, the difficulty is in actually controlling the club and learning to play, which is how it should be really. You shouldn't be fighting the course all the time, you should be fighting your own skill, your own control of the clubs. And that's certainly how it feels here. Now hopefully this is cleared the hazard. There we are, landing on the green, and there's the ball. Oh, just missed the flag and stopped fairly quickly. Let's show you the putting interface. This is in links, remember? And here we are, a third shot for birdie. It was just a few feet from the hole. There's a grid overlaid on the green, you can see here, showing we're going downhill slightly and there's not much left to right. So I'm going to give it a fairly gentle tap and hope that takes it down the hill to the hole. Oh, we're just a bit too hard and it ran off to the side. But you get the idea. Links is very impressive, let down only by a lack of speed, and one final flaw, which I'll just show you briefly when the screen comes back up. To aim in a different direction, you have to tap on this rotate button at the bottom of the screen and then use a fiddly control. And it is very fiddly, using the stylus. And then you have to wait 1 or 2 seconds while the whole screen and viewpoint change. Apart from this one hiccup and the fact that the no expansion pack seem to have arrived so far, I would rate this as just about the perfect mobile golf game.
It's been a frustrating quest for the perfect golf game. I've even written one myself. This is Fairway for the Nokia Communicators, which is still available. So I think I know what makes a good game in terms of the compromise, the balance between playability and difficulty and features and functions. For me, the only one that gets close is the Microsoft Lynx game, and even that's frustrating because it doesn't seem to be fully supported in terms of expansion packs and ongoing plans for the future.